Hey everyone, welcome back. This is How We Innovate at Arizona State University. Michael Houle is with us here. Michael, good to see you as always.
You too.
So we got these two founders from our ASU student cadre of crazy founders. We had a great conversation today with these two, Max and Zach, and then we had a chance to connect with another founder who spun out of Motorola, Leo Mathew. But we've got a little extra time to spend with these two yahoos. You want to dig in with some of the key factors you see in working with early stage startups?
Well, there were a few things that Leo mentioned that are worth talking about, that a lot of entrepreneurs have these things on their minds. One is, the decision to raise capital, and, when you raise capital, how much capital you want to raise. We didn't really get a chance to talk to him about, how he decided what his company was worth, but that's always a big question. It's fun to talk about. But the thing, the perspective that he brought was more, like what you guys are facing. A little bit, it's longer term. It's, it's not, you're not going to be in revenue instantly. So you have to be careful on how you're raising the money. If you're a hardware startup, it's a different thing than a software startup. So those are interesting things to talk about. So
yeah, you and Wahab actually got that question on stage. One of a fellow judge, I think, for some funding that you had put up several months ago, point blank and said, "What is Beyond Silicon's valuation?" Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to put Zach back on the hot seat, but if you were standing next to Zach and Wahab on stage, how would you?
Without addressing their specific circumstance, anybody that has listened to me talk about valuation, my answer is always, if you're a startup and you've got your product pretty much ready to have the first gen to sell, and you've demonstrated some sort of market commitment, whether hopefully it'd be sales, couple sales. If it's not sales, some proxy for that, demonstrated interest. And if you're not sure what your valuation is, then you're worth $6 million. So that's the starting point. That's the median valuation across the United States for companies that are in that paradigm. So if
that's regardless of industry.
Yeah, that's just all industries combined. Wow. There's segments for software and different types of things. It goes up and down a little bit. But what I'm saying is don't fret it too much. Just know what the benchmark is and ask yourself, okay, the investor knows that. I know that. So how am I different from that median valuation company? Am I worth more because I've progressed more? I've demonstrated better qualities than the median company, so I can say, I'm worth $8 million. Or am I going to be prepared for an investor to say, you're only worth $3 million. You haven't done anything. So you have to be prepared to defend yourself against the median company. So that's my point.
So you're 12 million valuation, is that right?
I think after that conversation, we sat, after that situation, we sat down and had a conversation that the answer to that question was, let's talk term sheet, afterwards. And so the
so you're not going to disclose today what you think the valuation is, but
yeah, certainly we want it to change. We want to grow. We want to, and so. But I think Michael hit the nail right on the head here. Yeah, usually companies, especially in hard tech, hit that mark between 5 and 10 million. Coming out of the gate, especially when you have something backing it, like IP or even.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're trying to value something pre-sales, how do you judge that? How do you?
It's market.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and now there's more data than ever. So we have access to the same information investors have access to. So it's not lopsided anymore. You can pretty much have level playing field when you walk into the negotiations, and so you can't let them kick you around as much. So. But the conversation about valuation, it's not so much that you should be prepared to have someone ask you, how much are you worth? And you just tell them off the cuff. It's more of an internal debate argument with your founder team to try to understand what we should be thinking about in terms of our valuation. So when we do get a term sheet, – 'we'll have a good perspective to negotiate that, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, you and Wahab actually got that question on stage. So I'm not going to put Zach back on the hot seat, but if you were standing next to Zach and Wahab on stage, how would you? How would you?
Well, without addressing their specific circumstance, I'm
And can you walk us through, what's going through the mind of the investor when they're asking for the valuation? They're looking to see the value of them buying shares of the company. Is that
Yeah, an
usually-
investor. First of all, the investor's not going to ask you your valuation. They're going to tell you their valuation for the most part. I mean, there's different circumstances, but you just need to know whether that guy's smoking something or if he's on track, and you want to be able to negotiate based on reality. So, but the investor, it depends on the type of industry. It really does. I can tell you that uniformly, for a long period of time across a lot of different investor panels and working on deals, let's assume you do have a product or a service, whatever it is, that that is demonstrated. Then it all comes down to the team. I mean, it's execution.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to have a big market to interest outside investors. So that's kind of a given. There's all kinds of detail on how you build your market. But the investor is looking at the team. Can you execute? Do I feel like this team can execute against that plan? And then the second thing is knowing that everything's going to go wrong. How will this team react in that circumstance? Because I'm going to be putting my money behind them. And, do I feel comfortable with this team? First of all, to do it, to have the energy, the commitment, all the things that Leo mentioned, like nights away from your family, sleeping on the couch, difficult decisions. How are you going to do in that environment when my money's on the line? And do I feel comfortable pulling the trigger with you? So
do you guys have any questions as a result of our conversation thus far today related to what Leo went through or things that you and your co-founders are struggling with right now that we can pick Michael's brain on and get his perspective?
Yeah, I mean, for us, one of the big things is like showing traction without having a thing built, because we do need some investment to continue our growth, and like the development, we're working with the development team, and also just some of the other business model, like we just need to make some progress with that, but funding is required for that. So proving traction without having a paying customer, is an interesting battle to be in. But any tips that you'd have to prove traction or to garner investor interest?
So you're talking about with customers, product market fit, when you say traction?
More so for, traction with the customers, but proving that to investors without having a paying customer.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I mean, so then you're talking about some proxy for a sale. You don't have a sale, so what can I offer? And so when you're giving your pitch or having the conversation, you should always spin things in a positive light, because the investor sometimes will try to make it negative, and you need to say, I don't have a sale yet, but I have this. I have these three things, and we feel confident based on this. I mean, you have to exude confidence that I'm going to bridge the gap between what I have now and actual sales. And it has to be based on some kind of reality. So, like a lot of times, especially like subscription-based software platforms and stuff, they did freemium models, and like that's all good, but how do you make me feel comfortable that once it's not free and you tell them they have to pay for it, they actually will?
Yeah.
And so you just have to be with a straight face, say, I'm aware of that problem. I'm aware that you have some skepticism, but I have an answer for you. And the answer is this. And you tell them, I've looked at that. We feel really comfortable because, and maybe it's, we've spent a lot of time designing our product around our potential customer and the testimonials, like if it's an engineering type of thing. I've had clients that design a whole product around what customer interaction has been. And so like we've designed a product that's so tied into what the market needs right now based on real customer feedback. Like that's a story you can sell. You can say, look, we didn't just come up with a product and we're going to try to push it out there and sell it. No, we designed a product that the market wants. And we know we did because we built it around the feedback from the customer. So I think that's a good proxy. Like you make them feel comfortable, yes, there is going to be a sale. So,
yeah, I think that's so key, having like a foundational understanding of the problem and what those customers are going through, and what they need.
Yeah.
Well, the other piece of this is you use the word traction, and you clarified that as product market fit. So I'm curious about, because I hear my colleagues as well talk very broadly about traction. And I've heard coaches for people that are looking for investment capitals to say lead with traction. When you're presenting your solution, make it clear right up front that the people you're trying to help are excited about using your technology, using your solution, using your service. And if they're willing to pay for it, even better, right? So some of the proxies, Michael, maybe you could help clarify this, would be maybe if not an actual sale where you have money coming from your first customer, maybe it's a letter of intent. They put it in writing that once it's ready to their standard, they're willing to pay X amount on a monthly basis or a yearly basis or a one-time fee, or maybe you've got pre-sales via crowdfunding. Maybe you've got a purchase order if you're selling to the government or you're selling to a larger organization. Are these the types of things that you're looking for to kind of take, base it in reality, or these initial kind of artifacts that validate? Yeah, we don't actually have the cash yet, but we've got the numbers or the testimonials in place to say that we're on the right track.
Yeah, I think number one, you present the best you can, right? So you have to look at your landscape and say, what assets do I have to bring to the table if I don't have a sale? And you try to document that and pursue that as best you can. But you have to know what the trigger point is. In other words, what's going to convert, Brent said letter of intent, but what's going to convert that intention to reality? And if you don't know that as the one asking for the money, then you don't deserve the money.
Yeah.
So you need to know the trigger point and say, we know what that is, and we're really close to accomplishing that. And all we need is some capital, and here's a couple things you want to do with the capital. So, again, I would spin it positively and let them know I'm on top of the problem. I know the problem more than anybody on the planet, so just give me some money, and I'll take the next step, right? So,
huge.
Yeah. But the one thing, don't just go in with letters of intent. We were kidding around earlier of, being in rooms with a lot of entrepreneurs, and some famous investor would say, well, okay, you've got all these partnerships. That just means you don't have any sales. So don't give me partnerships. So, but maybe that's all that company had to present, and they just didn't do a good job of selling it, because a partnership, what does that mean? It doesn't really mean a lot.
Yeah.
But on the letter of intent thing, I actually heard an investor say this. He goes, someone said, yeah, I've got all these letters of intent. And he goes, that doesn't mean anything. That just means the guy you were talking to wanted to get you the hell out of his office.
That's funny.
Because he wasn't willing to buy your product.
Yeah, and this has been well documented. We teach quite a bit of lean startup methodology, and Eric Ries was famous for kind of coining this notion of vanity metrics, and I think that's where you're going, where people are saying, hey, I really like what you're doing, but it's not good enough for me to actually deviate from my status quo or reach for my wallet or write a check at this point. So you have to be very, very careful of the vanity metrics or the kind of the red herrings when it comes to traction, proving product market fit. And also, to be clear, usability or the product being used is different than the product being paid for.
Yeah.
So those are some.
I would say if you can have use, that's a great first step. And then really the next question is pricing.
Yeah.
And nailing that right price that's going to allow you to blow this thing out. And that's experiential. You got to experiment and you got to play around. But you have to, in your mind, at least present to your investor, we know what the issue is, and we kind of we're in this ballpark. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but here's how we're going to figure that out once we have your money.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting piece of potentially validating problem solution fit with use of the product. And then once you can convert the users into potentially payers or find a third party payer, then you've got product market fit.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That you can sell. And all that has to tie into whatever you're presenting as in your business plan is here's the market and then here's the addressable market. You got to build it from the ground up based on those numbers that you're going to come up with. Anything else is like anybody can say, oh, the market's $20 billion and we're anticipating we'll get 4% of it. And it's like, based on what? So you have to build it based on your numbers. So that's the most credible.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, anything else from you guys before we wrap up? Really appreciate you being here. Max missed a quiz, so I'm hoping that he'll be able to pass whatever class.
I can't make it up, but
to
it's
my
okay.
colleague, whoever has to work with Max on making up those points. But really appreciate you, Zach, coming over from the lab. I know you guys got a lot of cooking over there to build out the product and get it shipped. So,
Brandon, it's been an incredible experience. I really enjoyed talking with Leo. I mean, his description of like of scaling and the process they're going through right now is I think something I'm really excited about and really got me on fire. I might have to call him up later and ask him some more questions.
You should do that.
Yeah.
No, he was eager to pay it forward, it sounded like. And his story of spinning out of Motorola is similar to what you guys are probably doing here at ASU, spinning out of the comfort of the ASU lab and all the resources that kind of come along with it. How do you make that leap into the abyss of being, a C-level executive of a new company, right? Rather than being a cog in the wheel of the research enterprise. So really excited for you and your co-founders to make that happen.
That's funny you mentioned that. Almost literally. I mean, Arizona State has this fantastic facility. Macro Technology Works was an old Motorola fabrication facility, and so we do a lot of our work there now, and we're looking forward to gaining more square footage and installing more tools and things.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, please.
Okay, cool. So, as I think most of us know, or excited about, like Tempe is definitely growing in terms of the startup scene. But finding investors, I think for especially people like first getting to the scene, can be hard. And each person has their own thing, whether it's industry based or through their connections, their community. What tips would you have for finding investors both within your sphere and maybe you find those through your technology or people outside of the sphere that you don't have day-to-day connections with?
Step one, enroll in Michael's class.
Okay.
No, I get a lot of people that reach out because they just want me to help them raise capital, and that's not really what we do. But we do make connections for clients of ours because we have made certain. But I've gone to lunches with VCs that could write really big checks, and I thought for sure I have this client that they're going to invest in. I just have to excite him a little bit, and he's going to cut a check, and he'll look at me and go, "Nah, not interested." And then other times, like he's writing a check at the table, paying for the guy's airfare because it's like, I never expected you to invest in this. So any kind of advice I would give you in terms of the psychology of how do you find the right investor? It's all we can do is make connections, but like it's really a kind of, who knows. There are differences, like the type of money that you're trying to raise. I think you need to think about, like, who are the people that are most likely to invest at that stage, and what's their mindset? What goes through their mind in making their decision? If it's an angel, like, someone with their own money or high net worth, a group of angels, family office, they're dealing with their own money.
Yeah.
So in that case, you need to appeal to their emotions. Like, the reason where they got to where they are is because they've done something successful, right? So you can excite that in them again, ignite that fire of being involved in a company, but they don't have to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And that'll make a difference. That won't make any difference with the VCs because they're metric driven for the most part. But so you need to think about that, right? And for the type of money you're going to be going after, am I going after like very seed round? Or am I going after more institutional mindset? Sometimes you bridge it a little bit. But like I would gear it towards that. And you just have to like find out, like in Arizona, for example, find out what other people have done to raise money. Yeah. The community events, you're already plugged into the community to some extent. Find out who the investors are. Go to things like Venture Madness and hit all the angel groups. ASU, Thunderbird has their thing. But even if you don't present there, meet the people and find out what else they're involved in. How are they investing? You know, who might be interested in your type of company. It just takes a little groundwork, but you have to be tenacious. It'll come together. I mean, the key is what I've always found is you need a lead. Like once you have a lead, the money follows. You have a credible lead, and sometimes it's like I've had entrepreneurs get their lead at a cocktail party where they get the wife of some famous entrepreneur to decide to cut a check for $500,000.
That's awesome.
And that name gets associated with the company. All of a sudden, all the other investors want to be part of the deal, just because of that name.
It's de-risked
Yeah,
to them, at least psychologically.
yeah. And so you got to find a lead if you can, and you know you get along the way you got to do whatever it takes. But if you can find a lead, that'll make your life a lot easier. And they'll know people. If they're interested in putting money in, they're going to want people to come in with them.
Yeah.
So they'll do a lot of the work, for you. So I don't know if
Awesome.
that helped.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, these two founders specifically, I think, have the tenacity, as you said, and the energy to actually find those leads and ultimately create a product that's going to change millions of people's lives. So we're excited for all of our founders at ASU working on really cool stuff, and we're excited to have you involved and helping folks along the way. So thanks for joining us. You two, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Max and Zach, appreciate
Fantastic,
you guys
Brent.
being here. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
All right, we'll see you out in the community, knocking on doors, shaking hands, kissing babies, passing out cigars, whatever it takes. We're in this together, and we appreciate you all being a part of it. So
See you next time.
go Devils.